when people ask, how did we start ADAO, it was simple. We happened to be sitting in the back room because I was late to Senator Patty Murray's Ban Asbestos Now briefing in Washington, D.C. And lo and behold, Doug Larkin was sitting next to me. So we commiserated a bit about why we were at the briefing, and Emily was sitting there. And we connected. Doug and I had this wonderful chemistry that was just like we were so aligned. We both were feeling pain and anger, and he ran a PR shop. So he said, if you ever want to do something, let me know. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's nice. Doug said, what are you going to do while you're in Washington? I said, well, I'm just going to stop into some of these offices and just tell them my story. When I left the meeting, and Doug kind of gave me a little warning, like, that's not how it's done in Washington. What did I know? I'm going to just carve out my own path because I'm fighting not only for Alan, but for my family. And I felt like somebody needed to listen. I was hoping somebody would want to listen.
You know, Linda and I didn't know each other when we did this. I'm East Coast. I'm right-leaning. Linda is left coast, left-leaning. But what brought us together was a common cause.
And that was it. We became brother and sisters fighting for what's right. And when you're right, you fight. When you fight, you win. And we fought so hard together.
For more than 2 years, ADAO has led the successful effort to unite the voices of thousands of asbestos victims. Your work has brought to light the need for asbestos awareness, education, prevention, and ultimately a cure.
And I want to dedicate this award to the hundreds of victims of asbestos disease from the town of Libby in my home state. I want to thank the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization's Linda Reinstein and honor her late husband, Alan. And I also like to thank co-founder Doug Larkin for his hard work.
And the more I learned about treatment for Alan, the more I became angry and upset that this had been going on for over 100 years.
But the reality is this problem is not going away, right? One study comes out with saying that, okay, this isn't a 20th century exposure, nor is it a 20th century disease associated with it, nor is it 20th century mortality. This is 21st century stuff, and this has an impact on our nation.
Deregulation. That is code for screw the little guy so the big guy gets paid. So because of that, asbestos is still not banned in the United States.
What do they say about the occupation? This person has mesothelioma. Almost all the cases are caused by asbestos. And do you find any doctor admitting or detecting or reporting that the person had asbestos exposure? And usually not. Usually what you find is occupation, retired.
Since there is no requirement for labeling, there's no requirement for importers to say that they have asbestos in a certain material, and since there are a number of materials where asbestos is still legal, we have no idea what's being added to our already severely burdensome problem in this country.
We don't know what's going to happen in the future, so we need to be vigilant. We need to continue these screening programs.
To leave you with Jim Keogh's quote, if you poison your boss a little bit each day, it's called murder, and you'll be convicted of that. If your boss poisons you a little bit each day, it's called the threshold limit value.
To urge passage of our ban, the Alan Reinstein Ban Asbestos Now Act. We have been supporting at APHA this effort since 2009, and we are so proud to have allies like ADAO, International Association of Firefighters, American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and many more.
Seek first, seek second opinions from centers of expertise in mesothelioma and asbestos-related diseases. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to question your treatment plan. it's your life in your own hands, and it's important. And any clinician who doesn't receive that well is of concern to me.
I'm very happy to be here today to say a little bit more about Dr. Selikoff. I opened, together with a colleague, the occupational medicine clinic at the Massachusetts General Hospital in 1980. And shortly thereafter, we began to see our first patients. And among those patients were asbestos-exposed workers with asbestos-related diseases from the shipyards in the greater Boston area. So that was my introduction to asbestos, and it's been a very important part of my life ever since.
So Emily's with me, and we go to meetings with Senator Feinstein and Boxer's staffers, 2 separate meetings. And I set this picture on the table, and it's so adorable. Alan and Emily are standing close with each other, big smiles. And as I'm telling our story about Alan's exposure and diagnosis and radical surgery, I see their eyes start to tear up. When I speak for myself, I really speak for the hundreds of thousands of others. For those of us who have cared for or buried a loved one, it's immeasurable pain. We look at calendars, we look at empty chairs, we look at father-daughter dances, and those have changed forever.
Well, I just turned 18 a couple weeks ago, so that was a very hard benchmark for me. Really missed my dad.
Well, I've worked with this organization. ADAO has really made a difference. In the middle of the debate on asbestos reform, as they called it, and asbestos litigation, this organization stepped up with real-life stories. And I'll never forget those meetings, sitting down with families and survivors and people who were telling me what happened when out of nowhere they learned that someone in their family had asbestosis or mesothelioma. I remember those stories when I went in to make my speeches.
It's time to take action on high school reform and put an end to the chemical companies' political games.
It's way past time for us to catch up with the rest of the world and ban asbestos altogether to protect American lives. That's why last year I was proud to work with Congresswoman Bonamici and all of you here at ADAO on the Alan Reinstein Asbestos Now Act.
Our efforts in Congress would not be possible without you and your ongoing commitment to increasing awareness, supporting families battling asbestos-related diseases, and holding state and federal agencies accountable for protecting the public.
This picture here is me and my dad. My dad's birthday would have been tomorrow, actually, and he died in 2004 of lung cancer. And that was about 1.5 years before I got diagnosed. My father was my exposure.
You know, I think Courtney said something really moving yesterday that I know a lot of us can relate to, and that is, it's not really until after the funeral is over, the food is all eaten, and people have left, and the cards have stopped coming, that it all hits you.
My dear friend, my best friend, Grammy Award-winning artist Warren Zevon, was a victim of mesothelioma. Asbestos exposure remains a consumer threat to this day.
The idea of this award going to Steve McQueen is amazing because my father was a big fan of tough guys, you know. He really, he loved the Steve McQueens, the John Waynes, and it just makes a lot of sense that we're going to celebrate Steve McQueen. And at the same time, it's part of what makes this difficult for us because we're celebrating a tough guy who died from this disease that even takes the tough guys away from us.
I mean, the asbestos is causing it. Why do we still have it? Why is it still being brought into the country? Why aren't we taking it out of schools? And this is now, this is, you know, our days, our time. I really wish he could see the woman that I've grown up to be, because I'm older than he was when he died. And I've had my fun like he had his fun, but I wish he'd seen how much influence he had on me.
Well, I think, number one, I think that asbestos is becoming, you know, talked about more, and the fact that the New York Times article even, you know, mentioned ADAO's positions on things. I'm very happy that at least it's getting out there in the limelight, because so many people think that asbestos is banned, and it's not.
At the end, which we didn't know it was the end, I think it's funny how your mind always creates this hopeful narrative. He has a demand mask on, his eyes are closed, but I know he can hear our voices. And Emily says to her father, "Dad, you're a champ, you won. You never gave up." So I knew that was the end. And it was brutal. And knowing that it was preventable, I think, makes it even worse for all of us. So you can imagine why prevention is really important to me and to everyone at ADAO. If we can prevent exposure, we can eliminate all the diseases.
This is my 7th year with ADAO and supporting the team with conference planning. Linda and I start like the year before and lay out all the things we have to get done. So it's been a great journey, and I love meeting all the new people this year and the people that come back every year.
Our 2022 theme, Art, Advocacy, and Action, is powerfully expressed by ADAO members whose life experience with asbestos has empowered them. On the 100th anniversary of Dr. Irving Selikoff's birth, the original asbestos ban advocate, the first badge's memorial tribute to asbestos workers poster and exhibit was launched in 2015. Badges from Johns Manville and Johnson & Johnson are among those featured in the 2016 poster, with a telling image of Linda, Reinstein, and Allen at a U.S. Senate briefing. The 2017 poster honors Senator Barbara Boxer, holding the enacted Toxic Substance Control Act signed into law by President Barack Obama then. Senator Boxer, as the poster says, is a true public health and environmental justice champion.
Helpful in our efforts to raise public awareness about the truly criminal nature of the asbestos industry, not just today in the developing world, but for many decades in the industrial world.
We need to stand up and fight against this. And as they used to say in the space program, Houston, we've got a problem. We need to get over this and get this taken care of.
In this sense, a developing country here in America where it is still a legal product.
It's through education, advocacy, and community that the Allen Reinstein bill is going to be signed into law during the 118th Congress.
In closing, I would very much like to pay tribute to your fine organization, because it is very important always to keep the human aspect first and foremost, which is something you people do admirably.
So when I think about over the last 20 years, the wins, the shared victories that ADAO has, we've worked with a lot of colleagues and victims who have shared their stories, so it is really a wonderful way to share memories and milestones. So we savor the victories, we unite again, and we move forward to truly work together to prevent exposure so no one suffers. And we're almost there. We're so almost there. I look forward to celebrating with everyone someday soon.